Welcome to another episode of the Working in Tech live stream. In this episode, I'm excited to be chatting with John Hulede, a sales professional with a diverse background and a passion for making a difference. He graduated with a degree in marketing as a four-year uh, degree in a 4-year degree and as a Division One collegiate golfer, then started his career in sales. But it didn't stop there. He went on to earn a master's degree in industrial and organizational psychology from the University of Maryland, equipping him with a deeper understanding of his customer needs and the ability to provide effective solutions. But John's impact extends beyond just his sales career. In 2022, he founded the Hulede Collegiate Golf Scholarship, or for short, HCGS, to serve as a mentor and provide financial aid to current and future minority collegiate golfers. So clearly, you see that he has a big passion for helping other people find and discover those careers. And talking about finding and discovering careers, that's exactly what this live stream is set up to do. So again, we're bringing, I don't think we've had an account executive on this show before. So again, we're lucky to have you. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Joanne. Thanks for having me.
Great. That's amazing. So um, one of the things that I usually start off with is, where it all starts. Why did you decide to pursue a career in tech?
Yeah, good question. So, wow, okay, yeah, let me. I would say getting into tech sales found me. I didn't really find it, and what I mean by that is after my senior year in college, being a collegiate golfer and everything, I really wanted to get into marketing. I really wanted to be a marketing copywriter, actually, and so I wanted to create ads. I wanted to do ads such as Under Armour's logo and brand and Nike's Just Do It, and how you see them playing in conference championships, winning titles, how all these people are using different logos and different hashtags and whatnot. So I wanted to do those type of things. Never worked out ever. Like I couldn't. Everyone wanted 2, 3, 4 years experience. I'm like now graduating, like I don't have that experience. And so sales kept finding me on LinkedIn. And so a recruiter had hit me up on LinkedIn, and that's how I got into my entry level sales job that I was working the longest. There was definitely a couple jobs I did before that, but we could talk about literally the actual step into it. But that was the first job I had that was long term, and then just kept working my way up from there.
Mm. And that's a significant thing, right? Because it's a lot of people face that in their tech careers, right? You have a vision, a perfect vision of what you think you really want to do, but it doesn't quite work out. Before we actually get to like how you kind of like got into sales, tell me a little bit about how you dealt with, that disappointment.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, let me go even back before that entry level role that I was at for long term. So my first job out of college was actually in mortgage sales,
Mhm.
right? And so I think a lot of times we see, oh, someone's in sales or someone's doing this career, they must have been doing well for a while. Not the case at all for me. So I got into mortgage sales. I got my offer on graduation day. So that was the first job I started. Had to pass a mortgage level exam to just give out mortgage advice and whatnot. 3 weeks in, we took the exam. I missed it by 1%. Got let go. All right, so here
Wow.
I am. I'm like, all right, I just started working. I'm already out of a job. So that was that. My next job after that was door-to-door sales. Long story short, with that job was not ideal either. I was doing like door-to-door third party marketing sales for Verizon, Fios type of sales.
Mhm.
2 weeks in, I fully realized that this is me being young and naive, that they were a Ponzi scheme and that they weren't going to pay me. So I quit that. So now here I am, 2 weeks or two jobs in. That was a total of 5 weeks of work experience. I'm like, all right, I don't have much money. I'm living at home. Obviously, I moved back home, and I'm like, all right, what do I do now? And so that's where the entry level sales role hit me up. Recruiter hit me up, and I was like, I just need experience. So if it's something, a product, a company that I'm like, oh, like they have a really cool product, I can get behind what they stand for and what they're trying to drive forward. I'll do it. And so that's how I started, and had a 35K base salary, worked on uncapped commissions, and just worked my way up. So there was a lot of disappointment. I don't really talk about it because no one really asked me like, how'd you start, like truly? But that was my like full start into the workplace in sales.
So, given that you had limited experience and you'd had this two negative experiences, how was the interview process to get this role? Because that's a big part of working anywhere. Like that's the gateway. So how did you navigate that interview?
Yeah, so even though I didn't have a lot of work experience, internship experience in college, because I was a student athlete, because I was pretty involved on campus, I had gone through other interview processes, whether it was trying to be part of like a club. I was part of Presidential Ambassadors my last year at Towson, which was like student liaison of the president and helping like um, support philanthropy on campus. And so a bunch of interviews for that. And I was part of the Student Athlete Advisory Council. And so I was even on the board. I think my junior year I was on the board. And so interview process for that. So just getting those skills, just being in different rooms that, I had to speak for myself and what I offered and what value I brought. That's kind of the interview experience that I used getting into um, sales and getting into full-time jobs after college. I didn't really go through any type of course, training work, anything like that to learn all these interview skills. I kind of just learned that from doing those different things, being involved on campus, and just learning from recruiters and what they would tell me.
Hmm. So, what was your experience like now going into this role, right? So you managed to land the interview, you had to go into this like new territory. Talk me through that. What were some of the things that excited you about now at least having that first role, getting paid on a regular basis because that check is
Mhm, mhm.
it does something to you. And then thirdly is that, how did you get stuck in that journey? Because I imagine like it never always just goes smoothly. And what were some of the things that help you get unstuck?
Yeah, so it was a pretty big learning curve when I started. I was selling a marketing solution to commercial real estate professionals. And I did it for 3.5 years. The first 3 months were definitely rocky because I was not getting it immediately from the jump. And I just had to be a sponge, be comfortable being uncomfortable and just learning from other people that have done it for a while. You do the same thing in sports. Like when you first get on a team, there's probably people that have been on that team for a year. So you have to learn from those people. Even if you're really good coming in, it's still different actually being on that new team. And so that was definitely my journey, starting it. Like I said, being stuck was the first 3 months, just saying, okay, I'm not making sales like that. I see other people making sales and more seamlessly at that, right? And so I'm fighting for one deal, and then I see them get like 3 deals in a day, and I'm like, oh, what am I missing? And so just learning and better understanding what I did not know, and
Mhm.
coming to terms with that, just being a sponge with all the mentors, all the veterans, all the people that had more experience than me.
So, again, as I was mentioning on our chat earlier, when I know that playing sports is very popular, among Black folks who go to college. That's how a lot of people even get like scholarships and things like that. But what I hear more of is like basketball or football. Where did the idea to play golf come from, and what inspired that? I'm really curious to hear about that journey.
Yeah, so golf was definitely not my first sport. If I had an ideal world, I would have been playing basketball. Basketball was my first love. You see, I got LeBron and Kobe there. I got another one of Kobe. I have Tiger there too, because obviously now golf is the thing, for me. But when I started, my first sport that I was playing was basketball. I played soccer for like a year, but too much running, so I said I'm good. Basketball was similar too, but being in PG County, we're such a big like HubSpot for basketball players and football players too, but especially
Mhm.
basketball players. And so I I think I had enough self-awareness to know like it's not happening for me for basketball. And so I did it for 2 years. I went to Coach Boone, which is, I believe, still pretty good basketball camp. And I remember the jump from like 12 to 13. I was like, oh, these, or I'm sorry, 11 to 12. I was like, oh, these kids are different. Like these kids are 6 feet, 5'10. They're running really fast 40s. And I'm like, I'm slow and small. Like that's not a good mix for basketball. And so with golf, when I was 8, my dad found a youth golf program called the First Tee, and it was 5 minute drive from my house. And he started as a volunteer. I started as a junior golfer, and I did that while doing other sports. But when I was 12, I decided to stick fully with that because you don't have to be the strongest, you don't have to be the quickest in golf. And I said, this is probably a good playing field for me. I don't have to run, you know. And so I stuck with that and worked my way up. In high school, I didn't play any other sport other than golf.
Wow, that's super cool. One of the things, and the reason why I go back here is like one of the things that you referenced when I talked about interviews, for example, was that you talked about interviewing, and then when I talked about how did you learn and grow in the job, you also go back to the team and veterans in the game. So how important was sports in your formation process as a professional?
Like to get into a
No,
what's
not necessarily to get into the role, but those transferable skills, right? That you learn being playing sports and working in teams and working with coaches and those kind of things. Like, how did that shape you as a professional?
yeah, I mean it's kind of crazy because to this day, whenever I'm getting, it doesn't have to be a job interview, just interviewed for anything, right? I'm still talking about being a college golfer because it's so transferable, right? And I think especially with golf, like it's in college, it's a team sport, but it's still an individual sport because no one can practice for it. You start to practice yourself. But when you're actually playing tournaments, you typically play 5 people and the top 4 scores count. And so just all the individual things that go into it, all the like, in any sport, you fight injuries. I had really bad back spasms and back problems in college. And so just fighting that adversity, a lot of that is just mental, And so that's why I have so much of Kobe and Tiger in the background because I feel like high school, I really learned like their mentalities and things like that. But college, I really became obsessed with it because I'm like, I need to become stronger mentally. And there's a lot of things that you're going to be fighting on your own that other people may not see. And so, um, yeah, it's all transferable. It doesn't matter really what sport you play. I think just being on a team, being an individual for a team effort is goes a long way. And the same thing happens in corporate America a lot of times. And so, yeah.
It's interesting that you say corporate America because that was a nice segue into my next question. So there's almost like a direct similarity between sports and sales in one regard. Nobody cares who the nice guy is. Nobody cares about all of that fancy stuff. On both sides, it's the results. People celebrate the results, both in sales and in sports. How are you dealing with, or how did you learn to cope with the pressure of having to get as many points on the board and the pressure of like those quarterly meetings?
So, so I have a group of friends too that played college golf or played first tee and things like that, and we're constantly competing and everything like that. It's interesting because I say that because at that time in high school and in college, for those of us that did play, us playing bad in a tournament felt like the biggest failure of our lives, at that time. And so hindsight is always 2020. It's easy to say now, like, man, that felt tough when I missed conferences or I wasn't starting all this other stuff. And I'm like, man, I didn't have any problems back then. Like my problems were I'm trying to play good golf, But I'm like, now I got bills. Like I have, things that um I need to pay for and people that rely on me. So I want to be a good role model for, my scholarship recipients and my younger sister and things like that. And so I'm just like, it was easy in hindsight doing those things, but um, I feel like it's just a different type of pressure. The older we get, the more responsibilities we have and whatnot. But definitely in high school, not playing good at your sport, not getting a good grade in a test felt like the worst thing ever. But now it's like, oh man, like, I'm not trying to be on a performance improvement plan or anything like that. So how do I keep my level of expectations and my level of performance at a level that, one, I'm not only getting paid well, but that I'm also able to advance in my career. And so, yeah, I think that would be my answer.
I feel like even that question stressed you out a little
Yeah, I mean,
bit.
it's just so much to think about. I don't think that it's really an easy question because,
Yeah.
um, yeah, your priorities just change over time. So,
So networking is something that I realize that is super important, to grow in your career, to progress, to even unlock new opportunities, to learn about new things, new tactics. I think you referenced it. How has that played a role in your career so far?
yeah, hmm. A lot of the jobs that I've gotten post college have come from either a LinkedIn recruiter hitting me up or, um, I think the first job I got out of college, I met them at a career fair. But networking as a whole, I mean, I think that it's grown, maybe not my career in the immediate aspect, but other parts, right? So if I'm talking about like my collegiate golf scholarship, that's grown my scholarship in ways that I couldn't even imagine because, I might know a collegiate coach that I knew from when I was playing college golf that they're still the coach now. And so I can reach out to them, spread the word about my scholarship, get hopefully some of their student athletes to apply and things like that. So it branches out in a lot of different ways. The one that comes most to mind for me is my golf scholarship, just because I still have that network of people that I knew when I was playing college golf, or I knew from junior golf that may know somebody else. And I'm like, oh, okay, they're coaching this team, or oh, they know the coach for this team. And so I need to reach out that way. I can continue to spread the word about the scholarship.
Great, great. Um, what are in your opinion, like what are the top three skills that someone going into your field or your space needs to succeed?
Top three. Oof. I haven't thought about this. I would say resilience, um, persistence, and I gotta go self-awareness.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, that's actually a very nice combination. Because when you said persistence, I was actually gonna make a joke about this. You're smiling because it's almost like you already know it.
Yeah.
This guy's on LinkedIn that hit you up and never go away. It's like
Never, never. Yeah, I mean, so, like,
so I think that's where the self-awareness to kill it off was a
yeah,
really good one.
for sure. Yeah, I mean, my first long-term role, right? I mean, my role was purely being a hunter and getting net new sales, and so I had to be persistent. I stay true to the fact that I say I'm an account manager. I am not an account executive because I am not all for the net new logo type of sales where I would get someone that doesn't know my product $0 and have to spend, $1 million in a year or something like that.
Mm,
And so I like the growing existing accounts. I like working with an existing business and things like that. But I think it's an important process for anyone in sales to have all realms of the experience. And I wouldn't even say even doing it. I did that for 3.5 years where I was hunting, but I wouldn't say I loved it. I don't think there was ever, sure, when you're getting sales, it's like, oh, cool, this is not bad. But I was still like, this is exhausting, like it never ends. You go to zero. The moment you're like, oh, I'm killing it. All right, next month you're back to zero. So, you know, yeah.
so I and So I think you worked in that first role for a few years, and
Mhm.
then was your first was your so that was in real estate. Was your second role also in real estate?
No, I was in education tech, and so
Okay,
I'm big on, it's amazing, and I'm coming up on 7 years of being post-college and everything like that. So I guess 7 years in May, I graduated, but, um I'm big on, if you're trying to grow in your career, I think you have to get different aspects in different industries. And so I did commercial real estate for 3.5 years. Well, okay, if I go all the way back, I did the mortgage for 3 weeks. And then I did, like
door to
the
door sales.
communication sales for 2 weeks, but I don't put
Yeah.
my LinkedIn because it's 5 weeks total. Then commercial real estate for 3.5 years, and then I did education tech for a year, and then I did now Adobe for 2 years. Actually, my 2 year was yesterday, so 2 years exactly.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, so my 2 years exactly in digital media, and so it's been completely different industries, but I think it's all been an important part of the process.
So tell me about your EdTech experience. It seems like the way you kind of like lit up when I asked is it sounds like it was somewhere you actually enjoyed.
Yeah, so my mom, well, I was raised on Kumon, right? And so me and my sister did Kumon, but my mom works in education. And so definitely making that transition, it felt right at the time because I was familiar with working with higher up people in education. And so, with my undergrad degree, just being in marketing and having mentors that were in different industries, different fields, different departments, and Towson University is where I went to undergrad. I understood it a little bit, but not a whole lot. But what we were selling was the critical issues training, so the diversity inclusion trainings, the sexual harassment trainings, the mental well-being trainings, and so I was definitely all about learning that aspect and that avenue of talking to different um, higher up people in the universities and getting them to spread those courses to their students and their faculty and staff and things like that.
Okay, so just to better understand this process, so this trainings were directly targeted at higher institutions, colleges, and then the colleges were the customers, and then the students were the users. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it was students and faculty and staff. So it might be
Oh, okay.
a staffer, getting it for their department, and then now they have diversity inclusion in the workplace, or you might have diversity inclusion for students or student athletes. There was a course for student athletes and things like that. So it can really encompass the whole university or college.
And how easy or difficult was selling that?
I mean, well, I think all sales has its challenges. I think it was easy in the aspect that I didn't have to explain what it was, but I would have to explain the features because there's so many different companies that do that. Um, yeah, I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
And so then you transition to your latest role. It kind of like feels full circle to me, like hearing your story. You all, I think, like you wanted to be in media in some form, maybe not necessarily. I think the goal was to get in advertising and write like really clever ads and things like that, but it's not quite that, but it's still media in its latest form. How does that feel to you, and is this the most natural you feel like you've been in a space, or how has that experience been for you so far?
Yeah. So on my last job search, I got into big tech and had recruiters hitting me up, and I was also applying and things like that. And so I had um, couple of final stage interviews and a few offers and things like that. And Adobe definitely felt the most natural in regards to what the culture was at the time, um, our product, seeing how people are using it, knowing that there is that marketing aspect that you mentioned, and I could talk to you more marketing directors and people in graphic design, things like that, while also talking to people that are actually in tech, working in procurement and IT and things like that. And so, um, again, I think it's all about, if anyone's considering sales out there, it's all about believing in the product, believing in the company, and believing in the mission. And so I feel like if you can do those things, you can sell. Like I said, I call myself an account manager, and I'm very true to the account manager customer success roles because I want to build and nurture relationships. And so that's where I'm at in my current sales career. But I think it just depends, what people are looking for and whatnot.
So one of the things that you've touched on a couple of times is account management. I know that there exists like multiple different roles and paths in the sales life cycle.
Yeah.
Account management is one I would like if you can just explain a bit more for those who might not be familiar, and like maybe what part that plays in the cycle, and maybe also like touch on all the different other roles.
Yeah. So that's another thing too. It's not really universal across the board. So I would say a good amount of the big tech companies have account managers in the same aspect, but some might have an account executive do all of that and things like that. But with my role, I focus on renewals. Now we have more of a growth focus as well. But last year it was focused around renewals and then day-to-day management of the account. So that means that, hey, my licenses aren't working, or hey, I'm not able to log into the admin console. I need to find them resources or help them create customer support tickets or whatnot. That way they can solve their issues. Then also just being strategic with like the growth as well. So if it's growth around renewal, why would they be growing around renewal? If they typically add 200 licenses in a year, maybe if they add it around renewal time, we can get them a deeper discount. Or they can add more of their licenses in advance. Maybe they could do that across 3 years and they add 600 licenses this year. And then that way they have all that and they can deploy it as they need, but they get it as a deeper discount. And so I would say that's basically what goes into account management, just trying to understand the needs and priorities of a company, trying to understand um, what they need the most in regards to managing their account and where their current state of the business is at.
So, what would be, just to kind of like get a better sense of it, because I've always been fascinated by this. So, I know like it's not going to be the same across across the different companies, even in different industries. But what is like a full sales life cycle like? Is it like, some advertising inbound, then you know, um, I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
you talk me through it.
So my first long term, sales role in the commercial real estate one, that one I would either make outbound calls or we would have an inbound line where people would call in. Now, since I have a book of business, I don't have anyone calling in. There's no like inbound line. I might have, customers that are in my book of business that call my work phone and they say, hey, like I'm looking for X, Y, and Z, whatnot. It's pretty rare though. I don't think a lot of customers email me, but account manager is all about being proactive and reaching out to customers, let's say 90 days before renewal. And then I'm saying, hey, we have this renewal coming up. I think it'd be a good time to have a strategic conversation. I'm looping in my account executives and my counterparts so that we can all talk about their state of the business. So whether that's focusing on they want to focus on the creative cloud and their marketing and whatnot and talk about that, I might loop in the counterparts on that side. Or if they want to talk about more about the document cloud side, I'll loop in those counterparts. And so just having a joint conversation in that regard. And then once we have that conversation, just better understanding, okay, like where the priorities are at and where could we grow? What are they looking to do this year that matches growth, but in a reasonable sense, as opposed to them just adding just to add, it has to make sense. And then going from there, having those negotiations, figuring out where those plays are, and then signing the contract, finalizing the contract. And if they need to migrate users or anything like that, making sure that's all set. And then we are complete at that point. I'm definitely oversimplifying it, but that's kind of how it goes in regards to bigger companies account management. It's not really an inbound line where people call in. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So, for I know money is always like a big motivator. At least I know
Yeah.
it's a big motivator for me. So how much? And I know again it's gonna differ, right? But imagine someone is solely focused on like tech sales roles, and they want to go into account management. What is typical like for entry level, for mid level, and then for seniors?
Gosh, that could really
I
vary.
know, I know you guys be making a killing on those OTs.
Yeah, I mean that's a thing. So, okay, before I even answer the question about salary, so you're familiar with Afrotech, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, so I went to Afrotech last year, and or even I went to a career fair at college and whatnot, and um, a lot of times I'll get students or people that are just graduated or people that are trying to transition into sales, and they're saying, "Oh man, I'm trying to make good money," everything like that. I think understanding why you're trying to get into tech sales, that would be the first crucial thing, because a lot of times, like I said, I get the whole, oh, I'm trying to make good money and whatnot. Well, I'm like, well, okay, why are you even trying to get into tech sales? Because like we talked about, I started at the door-to-door sales. I started at the 3-week job that I got let go of. And so it's there's a journey there in regards to making good money. I think, my internship, my first internship too, I was going to my senior year, was at Sherwin-Williams, and it was 10 weeks, and I believe I made $10 an hour, and I was thrilled. I was like, "Oh man, I'm making some money! Like, let's go!" Because I just wanted the experience. I just wanted to learn. Like, I knew this is where I needed to start. I needed to start in a place that I would just get experience. I was just going to start at a account manager role at a big tech company, and so all that to say, I mean, if you're doing entry level sales as a BDR, SDR, which is what it's called, so sales development representative or business development representative, I feel like I've seen a good amount of roles that are like your base salary might be like 50K, and you can make maybe, I mean, if you're one of the best, you can make like six figures, but maybe like 65 to 75K, something like that. And just working your way up. But it depends on where you are, because if you started at Amazon, you might make way different money than you do at a company selling, I don't know, sticky notes or something. I don't know, something random. You know what I mean? And so it depends. But yes, you can definitely make really good money. The OT is definitely there. Um, but I think the reasoning behind getting to sales has to be more than just making good money.
Mm, mm. Because that's probably what gets you going on the days where you're struggling, and you're not meeting those, you're not
Yeah.
hitting those targets.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm
Okay.
being honest, I've tried to quit sales so many times. Like you go through multiple. I mean, at least 4 times probably in my career. I'm like, I'm done with it. Like I'm getting out of sales, and then I don't, because I figure out, and I think recently too, I figured out, okay, like I actually do like sales, but it's a certain type of sale. I like customer success and I like account management. Um, and so I think just staying true to that, not you know wavering on that and saying, oh, well, they're paying good, so I can do this. I know I'd be miserable. Even if I make good money, I'd be miserable in like 6 months, because even less than that probably, because on the bad days, like you said, you're not going to crush it every day. There's going to be mundane tasks and all this other stuff that you're going to be like, man, like I don't like this part of the job. No one likes 100% of the job. And so um, I think just leaning into that and understanding that is crucial.
Mm. And how big of a part does, I think you touched on it. How big of a part does motivation play? And because ultimately, again, like if we go back a little bit, there's gonna be those moments, right? You're gonna have those high moments where the check comes in and looks really good. You probably maybe top number one or top three, something like that. You feel really good, even though maybe you didn't really do anything special. It was just the season. It was good. But on those other ends, what are the things that can keep you going when you're struggling to either make sales, or it's just a bad economy, or whatever is going on that's affecting those numbers being what they could be?
So I don't really believe in motivation. I believe in discipline, because the reason
Mm,
why I say is because motivation wavers, right? Like if you're playing a sport, if you're playing a college sport, regardless of what the sport is, people that say they're motivated to wake up at 5 a.m. every day to work out are lying. There's just no way. Like you don't want to do that every day. I still don't like waking up early to work out, but it's part of my discipline. You know, there's certain goals that I have in the gym that I'm like, it doesn't matter what I do the day before. I have workouts, and no one can hold me to that but me. And so the moment I stop being disciplined is the moment where it's like, all right, you need to pivot. You need to do something else.
mm,
And so I say all that to say the checks aren't going to keep you motivated, in my opinion, because you can't possibly make your biggest check ever and be number one. Like you might be number one. Sales can be very seasonal. So you might be number one for one quarter, and the next quarter you're like average. You know, you might still making good money being average on your team, but you're not possibly going to get rep of the quarter every quarter. Like it's
mm,
not a thing. I got rep of the quarter one time at Adobe, and that was last year Q2, and I've been doing
mm,
well and got FY 2023. You know, like it was like a top sales achiever award at Adobe, and so, but again, like you can't possibly be rep of the quarter every quarter. It's just not
every
possible.
quarter.
It's like LeBron winning the player of the week every week. Like you just don't.
It doesn't happen that way.
No, yeah. So
Good.
yeah, I would say discipline over motivation all day. Staying
Yeah,
routine.
and that ties into something that I saw recently that was actually really mind blowing. You know, it was talking about just time period. So it says if you do something for a week, you build a habit. If you do it for X amount of time, you build a culture. You do this. So it's like, you know, the more you kind of like get those reps in, the more it's likely to stick. I think that's the ultimate breakdown of the whole.
For
And then
sure.
it's just like that muscle memory and repetition. Okay, so if you had to go back in your 7+ year career now and do something differently, what would it be?
I can't answer that. Here's why. Because I feel like everything happens for a reason. And I feel that as hard as I pushed to get into marketing, it wasn't my meant to be path. And so I would say I'm a pretty spiritual person in the sense that, I believe in God, and I believe that a lot of the good things that I've had in my life, I'm not ordering those steps. I think it's just by trying to stay the course and by trying to be a good person that those things have happened. But again, things can go very south very quick. And so I'm always mindful of that. I think that the moment you get too big headed, oh, like I'll never be bottom half of the sales team. I'll never be, one of the worst in my career. Then that's when you end up going through your bad
Then
season.
right then,
Yeah.
right exactly then.
Yeah. And so, layoffs and all types of stuff. There's so much that we cannot control. And so I even have written on my whiteboard, control what you can control, because that's all you can do at the end of the day.
Right,
And so,
100. That's
yeah.
true. Okay, so looking back on your career, what would you say has been like, the biggest contributing factor to, the success that you've had so far?
Mentorship.
Hmm.
I think it's learning from people that have done it before me, no matter what I'm doing, right? And so with golf, that's an easy one because I can think of so many people that were playing high school golf, college golf before me that I was like, hey, like I see you know how to hit your driver like this. Like I would love to learn that and pick their brain. And same thing with my sales career. And so it's a weird me being at the point where like I am a mentor to other people now because I'm like, I still have so many mentors. I have a mentor at Adobe that I have one-on-ones often, and she's always giving me advice and things like that. I have mentors outside of my actual job.
Hmm.
I have mentors still in golf. I have mentors in life. I have my parents that mentor me and tell me, when I'm acting dumb when I need to change my course and whatnot. And so I think it's all about mentorship. It's all about being a sponge. I think even the best in the world at what they do, which I hope to be one day at something, I think they still have mentors, and they have mentors for a reason. I think you just have to
Mm.
continuously learn. And so I think that's what it's about.
Yeah, that's really important that you said that because I think for the longest time, I don't even think it's been big headed, but I just had this view, that coaching and coaches were like a scam, right? Like, especially not in sports, but more in like, personal life and things like that. All these people who kind of like come up and say, I'll help you do this. And a lot of them are. But I I thought about something that was very, very powerful, right? Especially if we use like the golf example, because if you think about sports teams, coaches are there to run drills and do things like that. Sometimes it's just to even get the team going and make those changes. But in individual sports like golf, oftentimes the margins between winning and losing is so tight. It's not a big difference.
Hmm.
So the edge that you sometimes have, and oftentimes like as a player you can only focus on so many things. Like, is my swing right? I don't know all the things that you do in preparation, but so oftentimes you need someone who's not just trying to win the game or get a better shot, but is also even trying to watch, because sometimes it's not, you're not the best, you can just find a way to be better than your opponent, right?
Hmm.
And that's where I started to see the value is like thinking more deeply about, and if at that level where everybody's like at the top, you can still find margins. I definitely think that, you know, for like regular everyday life, being maybe one out of like a million product managers or account managers, you can always find things to improve, right? So that was something that, I unlocked a couple years ago, and it completely changed my perspective.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think it's important. I see the question that I just came into. I think it's important to constantly find ways to push yourself, right? And so, personally, last year, I became a bodybuilder. Why?
Mm,
Because I didn't think I could do it. And I hated the idea that, oh, like I'm actually terrified of this. I'm terrified of getting to the point where I have to get on stage and I have to wear shorts and I have to pose in front of people, and judges are telling me, whether or not I'm good enough, right? And so it's just a completely new territory. I'm like, I've never thought about that. My fiance powerlifts and just did her first powerlifting meet last week. And so just finding ways to like consistently challenge myself has been, I think that's helped me grow in my career in a lot of
mm.
ways.
Great. Okay, so again, we have John here for roughly another 20 minutes. This is the Working Tech live stream. If you have any questions, leave them in the chat. You already know the drill. But I have one more question for John before we start taking audience questions. So, I feel like you kind of like already have this full circle moment where you decided to start, your scholarship. Can you tell me a little bit
Yeah,
more about that and what inspired it?
man, that truthfully, man, if I could, if I was rich, right, and I could stop working 9 to 5, I would run that full time, like no questions asked. It has been my biggest joy in my career yet, and I feel that when I say everything happens for a reason, if I got into marketing, I might have not made the money I needed to make to support a scholarship and grow it to this level in 3 years. And so,
Mm,
what's scholarship been about? It really came up just because, again, I have a group of good friends, maybe like 15 of us, that all minority golfers from the area, and we just support each other in high school and junior golf and college golf. And so just realizing that there was a gap, and I was thinking back to my undergrad career, and I'm like, okay, like I didn't really have any mentors that look like me that could mentor me, when I was in college. And I had friends that were, we were all around the same age, but I'm like, man, what would my career would have been if I had people that look like me that had gone through those things, to tell me, hey, like, I know you have this, I know this is tough going through this injury. I know this is tough, like not sitting out for this tournament, but this is how you get through it. This is what helped me. And so being able to do that, I just talked to one of my scholarship winners a couple hours ago. I'm this year will make 14 scholarships at about 32,000 total awarded.
Wow,
Coming up in, I guess, July 1st will be that. So
that's pretty cool.
I've just been, blessed to support them and be the mentor that, I wish I had in college. And so I think that's all been a really rewarding process. And that's what I think pushes me in sales, because I'm like, my why is no longer just me and making money. It's about, how
Mm.
do I grow my career? How do I make more? That way I can further support these kids and pay for it. And so, yeah,
Yeah, there's no bigger I don't feel like there's any bigger like mission than that,
yeah,
and it brings on good pressure. So
for
first
sure.
question we have: how do you motivate yourself to keep learning and not stay comfortable despite having made it in tech?
So I actually love that question. Here's why. Because I think once you get to big tech, you have this idea that, oh, I made it now. Oh, I did what I needed to do to get to my career. And then I realized like a year in that, okay, but how do you separate yourself? Because I didn't want to just make it a big tech. It was never my goal to just make it to big tech. But my thought was, once I actually got in the room, I'm like, okay, not only how do I stay in the room, but how do I differentiate myself to be someone that people can rely on and people can look to for advice and tips in tech. And so not getting not staying comfortable, like, I went to Afro Tech because I've never gone through a tech conference, period. And so that
Mm.
was a way that I was like, all right, I need to like branch out and whatnot. I need to network. I need to meet people in the industry and learn from them, not just me relaying information, but these are also people, in Apple and Meta and Google and Amazon, all over, really. How do I learn from them? There are people that have been doing this for years, and actually made good friends with one person that's like an account director who's been in sales for a while and works at a top tech company. And just hearing her advice on it, I'm like, oh wow, like that's like, I feel like I can reach out to her for anything in sales. And so I think you just have to continuously get outside your comfort zone, find new ways to challenge yourself, and realize that you think you make it when you get to big tech, but there's always someone waiting to replace you. And so just consistently staying um, that disciplined and knowing what your why is to keep you moving up in your career. So that'd be
Mm.
my answer. Yeah.
And before we go to the next one, I have like a little 1B question, which is, how important are conferences like Afrotech?
Hmm. So, truthfully, I don't know if I'm going this year, but that's for different reasons. Going last year, I wasn't even going to like get a new job or anything like that. I just wanted to meet people in that space. When I tell you, you know how this is probably choosing an example, but I don't even know what it was, but the first Barbie doll that was African American, I can only imagine. Actually, here's a better example, right? The Little Mermaid. The fact that Holly Bailey was Little Mermaid, and I saw so many videos of, little black girls seeing like, oh my gosh, she looks like me. Her hair looks like me. And so being at Afrotech, seeing that representation, I was like, I've never seen this many minorities in tech. Like, this is crazy to me. If I went to this conference when I was in college or high school, I would have then known, oh, I too
I
can be in
belong there.
that space. The reason why I'm in big tech, period, and this is my favorite story, but true story. I had two coworkers from my last job. We all decided, all right, how do we make that next step up? One of them, I don't remember who it was exactly, saw a TikTok about all like top tech companies to apply to. We all applied to them at the same time. I ended up at Adobe. One of them ended up at Microsoft. Other one ended up at Salesforce, and we all did that at the same time. But that was because of representation
Wow.
and people in my
Somebody
circle.
making that content, doing that, right?
Yeah, and people told me, "Oh yeah, like you could definitely do it. Like you should definitely apply. You have all the skills." And so that we all apply it without referrals, basically. I mean, and so now we're here, and I think that regardless of what we do next, regardless of how long we stay, we have it on our resume that it might not pay dividends to stay in a big tech company the next role, but it might lead to a director position later on because we have that experience working at larger company and working with larger clients, period. And so yeah,
You know,
that's why Afrotech's
you,
important. Yeah.
you unlock something that I've always had in my mind. Is, working at these companies is audacious, right? Like, especially if you don't know anyone who's worked there, you've not seen other people. And to your point, like that's why places like Afrotech, because when you go into Afrotech and you meet 50 Black people who work at Amazon, then working at Amazon doesn't feel that, it's still special, but it doesn't feel out of reach. Like if you don't know anyone who works there, it just feels like it's almost like somebody telling me they work at the CIA. I've never met anyone who works at the
Yeah,
CIA. You see what I'm saying? So
yeah,
it sounds like so out of reach. But imagine if I end up in a room full of people at the CIA. It doesn't mean I want to work there, but at the very least, now that feels like, oh, that guy plays soccer just like I do. So what other commonalities are there that can make me work there? And
right.
ultimately, I mean, that's even why this exists, right? Like, how can we find those examples or those opportunities where, more Black and brown kids can say, hey, I know John who works at Adobe. I know this other person who works here and there. And because of that, I also, have this audacity that I could work at Adobe someday, right? And I think
Yeah,
that for me is like why it's so important.
yeah. I
Okay.
mean, I guess my last point to that, right? You worked at Apple before.
Yep.
Regardless of 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, that's something that like no one can ever take from you. And
True.
so it's always going to be relevant the fact that you were in the room. You know what it takes to stay in the room. You know what it takes to
Yeah.
be promoted and all these other things. And so that's what I'm looking forward to. Like regardless of how long I'm at Adobe, right? I'm like that's experience that no one can ever take from me. If I want to pivot in 5 years, 10 years, or whatnot to a different company, all types of things, like the fact that I've been in this room already, I feel like I know what it takes. And you don't understand it until you actually are in that room, in my opinion. And so,
That's
yeah.
true. So, John, there's a question from John. What's the most rewarding part of your job?
So truthfully, I wouldn't even say it's about work, but I'm gonna answer based on the actual rewarding part about my job, and then I'm gonna tell you that my true deep down reason. But I would say just helping clients meet their goals, right? And so I definitely like the problem solve. I like to figure things out. And so, if let's say, you're in an apartment or house or whatnot, and your files goes down and you have to call someone, right? Having someone reliable to say, hey, like, yeah, let me help you out with that. Let me fix that. And they're able to fix it. And then even if that's just, you can call the exact same person every time to fix that. I like being that person. I like giving a certain level of customer experience, customer support, where people can rely on you, because I think it changes how others see sales, how others see relationship building, and all types of things. And so I just like helping others, and I feel like sales in the avenue that I'm in the account management, customer success, it helps me help others. But again, my true deep down reason has nothing to do with work. The most rewarding part is definitely the fact that I can do the scholarship by far. And when I say, oh yeah, all these times I'm like, oh, I'm gonna quit sales, I'm so beyond that now, and I'm just trying to find new ways to pivot into sales, because I know I can continue to grow this scholarship in ways that I never thought. I started the scholarship with $1,000 of my own money, and I never thought in 3 years I'd be over 32,000, 14 different scholarships. But being in sales, it's helped me say, okay, well, the more I pivot, the more I stay in the industry, I can get to $100,000 in less than 10 years, all these different things. And so um, that is the true most rewarding part about my job. Yeah.
And that's actually true. Like, one of the so I used to lead uh, a free tech training program, where we basically help people upskill into tech. And
Mm,
one of the things that I found out is one big commonality that I see that I saw across a lot of our students, most of whom were Black, was just this always big heart to want to do stuff. But a lot of them went either the education or social work route. Um, but I think just as I think they were discovering, I also discovered that you're almost always able to do more good when you have more money than
for sure.
when you only have time, or when you have, because even like the most evil person, right? Let's say an evil billionaire could give $100 million and do more good with that one check that you could ever do your whole life, right? Because
Right.
that's just how the dynamics of the world works, right? Money makes the world go round. So
Right.
ultimately, like I definitely resonate with that mindset or that vision of course you still have to have your heart in the right place, but it definitely helps if you have a lot of resources to back it up.
For sure. Yeah. And I think another aspect too that helps me stay grounded in this industry in sales is that this is an industry that I'm not stuck in meetings 9 to 5, right?
Mm,
Like I have time to answer client questions, all these other things. Whereas, let's say I'm working at a blue collar job that I have to stand on my feet and I have to physically be there. Like, let's say I'm a doctor. I can't do that from my house and whatnot. Like, I have to physically be in surgery, all these other things. And so, also having that time to then go out and watch these scholarship golfers play and all these other things, like it's not just about me giving the money, it's about me actually showing up and being visible.
mm,
Because if I had, again, a mentor that while I was in college, I was coming to my tournaments and watching me play, and the scholarship recipient that I was just talking to a couple hours ago, I watched her play a couple days ago, and so we were talking about that. And I played that course. I played that course in college too. I played the course last year, like so I know the course well, and so she knows the course well too because I watched her play last year at the same course. And so having that relationship, knowing that they can rely on me to show up, and even if it's for a little bit, I think that means everything.
yeah, yeah, it does. So I think the last question that we have is, how do you approach a mentor you're interested in learning from?
Yeah, so I think just understanding that you have to start somewhere, right? And so I say that because you might want to get to the VP, but you might need to have a conversation with someone else first who knows this next person, who knows this next person. My mentor at Adobe, she was in sales, had a whole long-term sales career, very successful, and then pivoted into sales enablement and then pivoted into data and governance. I say that because I didn't just connect with her. I connected with someone else internally at Adobe. I think I hit them up on Slack internally, then talked to them. They connected me with someone else. Then they connected me with someone else. So I had multiple conversations. I think I had 5 coffee chats before I got to her. And now I'm like, you are the mentor I need. Like, you are exactly what I was looking for. And just to navigate, sometimes we don't even talk about sales. How did you navigate your tech career? How'd you navigate saving? How'd you navigate investing? How'd you navigate building up equity working at a big tech company? Things like that. And
Mm,
so how'd you navigate having a single family home? I have a townhouse.
mm,
So it's like I'm just trying to learn. I know that I don't have all the answers, but I would approach it in that sense, and also know why you're reaching out. Don't just say, "Hey, I just want to connect." Like, you need to have specific points. And when I was connecting with these people, I was trying to learn about the different industries, what they were in. Some people were in workplace design, some people were in talent development, and then, like I said, my mentor right now is in data and governance. And so, understanding, this is why I'm reaching out. This is what I'm looking to learn more about, and know what you have to offer as well. I would say those are the main things.
So I think you also unlock something there that I really like. Because oftentimes, like number one, you may not even know who you're really looking for, and two, they may be out of reach, right? So how important is even like building that grassroots support, right? Like building that relationship to who can connect you to that person who can actually really help you.
Yeah, I mean, like you just said, a lot of times we don't even know what we really need. And so I think sometimes we say, "Oh, like I'm trying to get into sales." But deep down, you're just trying to look for a more fulfilling career that you feel more aligned with that can also pay well. That might not be sales, but understanding the deep down roots. And that's not to say you have that answer from the jump, but I think you need to
Mm,
have multiple conversations with other people that have been there, or they might even be in that industry. I mean, if I want to talk to someone who's in marketing, I'm talking to them. Then I might talk to someone in sales. Then I might talk to someone in a different industry, just better understanding all scopes. That way I can frame, okay, so this is actually what I'm saying. This is actually what I mean. Uh,
mm.
And like I said, my mentor, she tells me all the time, like I might be saying, "Oh, this is frustrating. I'm tired of this and whatnot." And then after having multiple conversations, she's saying, "Okay, this is actually what you're saying. You're not actually tired of it. You're tired of these things. So you need to just better align in these industries and these aspects of the role and things like that." And I'm like, didn't think of that. That's makes a lot of sense. Yeah, like wow,
Now that you say
yeah. Like, okay, I wish I thought about that, but it took 4 coffee chats for you to unlock that, and I'm like, oh, so that is what I'm saying.
it. That's very fascinating. Okay, we're up on time. Usually, I don't know if there's anyone you want to shout out, any last words, any last pieces of advice. I think this is typically the time we do that.
Shout out. Well, okay, shout out my mentor, Jamie, who's the one I keep talking about. Shout out my fiance, Tarina. Um, Shout out all recipients of the Hulede Collegiate Golf Scholarship and helping me grow it and spread the word.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and platform. And to everyone who joined us tonight, thank you for joining. This has been another great episode of the Working in Tech live stream. And we hope to see you next week again with another exciting episode.